Okay, class. So today we will have this special topic in structural engineering. So which is a specialist field where we highlight the risk and the uncertainties in the analysis or design of structures. From module 0, you already know that we are never completely certain about the loads, although we can estimate them so that they are less or mas bababa dun sa what the structure can carry, but we still apply some reduction factors. Although this will just be an introductory lecture, I'm going to discuss this concept which we call as the risk, wherein we only not apply this to structures or some vertical structures, but and also in other civil engineering fields or projects. And hopefully this lecture will be valuable to you both as future structural engineers and also for your research kapag involve yung risk or probabilities sa mga studies ninyo. Okay, so this topic is very important in our country. Usually, ito yung main focus ng mga research and some other school, they have a specific course dedicated in understanding disasters. And in 2025 lang, the Philippines again ranked number 1 in the World Risk Index. You can search that, the information or the ranking sa internet. Number 1 ulit, but may mga topics sila per year. Like for this year, the focus is floods. We are rank 1 when it comes to the risk. They evaluate the floods in our country and also how vulnerable the infrastructure that we have and the community as a whole. And last year, iba yung criteria nila or category, pero number 1 pa rin yung Philippines. So you can try to look at the ranking sa web. Okay, so it's very important lalong-lalo na we also have the massive corruption wherein na reveal kung gaano ka-weak yung mga design na supposed to be yun yung nagpo-protect from these hazards. So, laging merong disasters, almost parang for the past months, after a week, meron ulit earthquake and super typhoon. Okay, in general, it is very important that we recognize that our communities, our buildings, our infrastructure face or there's a possibility na magkaroon sila ng damage given this hazards. Although we have some programs or projects to strengthen the overall resilience of the infrastructure and the community because of the dynamics and the worsening effect of these disasters, it still remains a major problem. Okay, so as a structural engineer, it's very important for us to understand these hazards and how we'll be able to design our structures, how we're going to quantify these hazards and apply it into our structure in our design. So yung bago ngayon, we have this probabilistic based engineering design. So this is under reliability risk. We also have reliability based engineering. So yung mga bago ngayon sa mga design firm, yung probabilistic based design. But because what we have now is the traditional code base, wherein yung mga loads na ina-apply natin ay from minimum or deterministic yung mga values. And also yung strength capacity ng ating mga structural members. So for under probabilistic design, we treat the loads again and also the resistance and also the hazard as random variable with distribution. So we apply the concepts or theories of probability. Because in general, once we understand the hazards, the disasters, the loads that we apply to structure, somehow it will give us some information on how much we should take into account those loads in our design so that we don't over design. We have many sources, references, and organizations na meron silang sariling kanya-kanyang list ng types of disasters. Merong global list kung ano ba yung different categories ng mga disasters na yon, and meron ding national list no, kung ano lang yung mga disaster na nag-occur dun sa region nila. But this is according to the Emergency Events Database, or what we call as EMDAT. And these are their classification, or 9 major types. It includes drought, earthquake, extreme temperature, flood, mass movement, wet or dry. Meron pa yung classification. The storms, included dito yung typhoons and hurricanes, if Atlantic yung pinag-uusapan. And also wildfire and volcanic activity. And these categories help researchers and governments to understand the different kinds of hazard that may affect to a certain area. And then, according to them, sa MDAT, they define disaster as any event that overwhelms the capacity of a community or a country respond on its own, or a severe situation that it requires a help either national or international. Okay, so for this slide, it just shows the global disaster trends for the past 5 years, and this is according to MDAT criteria. And only events that cause at least 10 deaths yung kasama or considered as a major disaster or event according to them. And aside from at least 10 deaths, kailangan naka-affect din siya ng 100 or more people, or triggered a state of emergency or international assistance also included para ma-qualify siya as a disaster. So, paldo dito yung Philippines, no? Madami tayong natural disasters wherein marami yung casualties and marami ding naapektuhan. Although, hindi ganong ka-significant as compared yung mga superlatives na meron dito. But, of course, isa yung Philippines sa madaming occurrences or disaster under this data from MDAT. And then, as we can see here, na on average, there's around 400 disaster events in each year. And then, for the past 5 years, it is in 2021 na merong madaming number ng occurrences with 432 events. And it is in the US with 43 events. And across these years, disasters claimed tens of thousands of lives, no, from 10,000 up to 86,473 in 2023, and on average, it affects average mga 100 million people annually. And also in terms of hazards, yung pinaka-common is yung flooding for 4 consecutive years. Pero yung storm, yung nagkukos ng pinakamataas na economic damage. And then include doon yung pinaka-major storms like sa mga US, like we have Hurricane Helen, Hurricane Ian, Hurricane Ida. No, so expensive yun. Pag natinamaan ng bagyo yung US, malaki agad yung damages kasi yung mga properties, yung value ng properties doon ay mas mahal compared dito sa value na meron tayo sa Pilipinas. Pero you can see here that the most expensive includes the storm, and then ito yung most expensive significant, yung pinaka-significant or single event na magastos. And then we also have the deadliest. For deadliest, yung earthquake and heat wave yung pinaka-cost ng pinakamataas na fatalities in the past 5 years. Disasters are defined as unpredictable events that overwhelm a structure or a community. and they are unpredictable. Say for example, yung mga earthquakes, no, it involves a lot of natural variability. And we cannot forecast exactly kung kailan mangyayari yung earthquake or kung gaano yun kalakas, no? And also, even though we can track typhoon paths, pero hindi natin ma-pinpoint or hindi natin ma-assess talaga yung pinaka-exact na magiging impact nun sa isang community because the track of typhoon, the intensity and its effect, and the environment itself is very dynamic. Yung mga hazards mas nag-intensify, and also the behavior of the structure. Pag luma na yon, iba na din yung performance niya. So for us as engineers, how do we quantify these uncertainties? Again, in structural engineering, most of our loads, yung mga loads na ina-apply natin sa structure ay deterministic, but they were actually developed through experiments, tests, and decades of research which involve yung probability. And because they have a lot of trials, no, since we are not certain about the actual behavior of the structure and kung paano siya mag-behave against those loads. So we do some research or testing. So lahat yun ay involve yung uncertainties. So uncertainties define it as not knowing exactly the quantity, the model, or the future state of an asset or a structure. Yung example nun is yung 50-year wind speed at site, yung exact concrete strength in a pour, lalong-lalo na pag pinaghaluan natin siya ng ibang material. So, we are not certain about its exact strength. And also, the stiffness of soil layer, different site, magkakaiba yung properties ng soil. In practice, we have two types. No, we classify uncertainties into two. The first one, ito yung tinatawag nating aleatory uncertainty. So this pertains to natural, yung inherent randomness that hindi natin kayang ma-eliminate. So example nito is hindi natin makokontrol yung magnitude of an earthquake or the intensity nung mga wind from the typhoon. But we can accommodate it and then we expect it sa design. Halimbawa, in-expect natin from the data na malakas yung bagyo laging dumadaan dito from historical data, then we can accommodate it and we apply 300 kph na wind design dun sa analysis ng structure. While yung opposite nun is yung epistemic uncertainty. So ito yung uncertainty na because of our lack of knowledge about certain thing or a structure that we design. So we can reduce this, we can control this. For example, pag in-improve natin yung soil investigation, yung borehole logs natin, mas improve, then mas naging close tayo dun sa kung paano natin i-design talaga yung mga foundation. And pag tama yung mga nasa plano natin as built dimensions, or kapag na-understand natin yung actual material behavior from research, na somehow we can reduce the uncertainties. Basta close na tayo dun sa information or tamang properties ng structure, then mas nare-reduce natin yung uncertainties. So again, as an nasa engineering standpoint, kapag aleatory, we expect it and design for it. And then if it is epistemic, we study it and we can reduce it. So, isang example nan is yung pagdi-design natin ng mga pole, na freestanding pole. Ano ba yung mga aleatory or yung mga loads na hindi natin makokontrol, natatama dun sa pole. So example nan is yung wind, of course. The wind gas is aleatory or uncontrollable. But yung incorrect embedment ng pole, yung unknown soil type or poor construction quality, yun yung epistemic. Because mali yung information or lack of information, but the more we understand the parameters, the correct procedures, then mas nagiging certain tayo or yung ibang term doon is mas nagiging reliable yung mga design. And for our loadings na ina-apply sa structure, mas sure tayo sa mga dead loads. Like yung mga material, yung mga permanent fixtures na nilalagay natin doon, yung mga finishing, mas certain tayo dito sa mga dead load. Kaya mababa lang yung variability. But for live load, hindi natin sure kung yung occupancy type ba na yun ay masusunod all throughout. So we apply higher variability as compared to dead load. So mas mataas yung uncertainty for live load. Lalong-lalo na kapag earthquake load or wind load, mas mataas yung uncertainty. Going to the specifics, now we can define uncertainty and we can relate uncertainty to the probability. And then uncertainty is related to risk. Now, since risk itself carries uncertainty, we are never fully sure or certain about yung magiging impact or yung consequences ng hazard sa isang infrastructure, state, or sa asset. Therefore, para ma-quantify natin yun, ma-quantify natin yung magiging impact or consequence, we apply yung concept ng probability or so we apply probability theory para somehow makapag-provide ng basis sa pag-model or sa pag-solve or sa pag-quantify nitong risk. So we can describe or define risk na it is a danger posed to a building, hindi lang sa building but also for us, sa people or sa community. And all of us are exposed to risk in different ways. Na even sure tayo na may mangyayari na something will happen. We are sure na something probability na mangyari yung risk na yon. Pero we are sure na probability certain. Pero of course, kapag meron yung consequence, although certain tayo na may mangyayaring something, kasi 'di ba, not knowing, uncertain ka, then magkakaroon ng risk. So paano ngayon kapag sure ka na mangyayari 'yon? Magkakaroon pa ba ng risk? No. So gagawin natin probability ay 1. Pero as long as na meron daw consequence, yan, so the risk still exists. So, hindi mawawala yung risk. Pero kapag wala namang risk, expected na wala namang risk, so wala naman tayong dapat pag-usapan about dito sa risk. But in general, sa mundo natin, merong laging consequences. So, lagi yan nag-exist. So, therefore, yung uncertainty is always present then. So, that is why risk is part of engineering. So, we need to consider that in all of our design. Okay, so isa pang definition dito is that uncertainty of failures and the consequences of failure vary significantly from one structure to another. Although merong mga typical structure na pwede nating i-apply yung concept ng risk doon sa isang structure, na papunta doon na may mga general, kinakategorize natin yung mga structure. Pero if we try to look deeper into specific infrastructure, lalong-lalo na yung mga design ngayon, iba-iba naman yung site, iba-iba naman yung material na ginamit, na hindi natin pwedeng sabihin na 100% na yung risk na mangyayari sa isang bridge ay same din dun sa risk na mangyayari sa mga building. No, marami tayong factors na kailangan i-consider para ma-compute yung expected or yung total risk na ma-impose or maging present dun sa structure. Okay, so dito sa engineering, we divide or we decompose yung probability times consequence na to into three spheres or level. Tawag ko dito. So mga spheres or dimension na tinatawag. So may iba-iba siyang this is the pag pinagsama-sama natin yung hazard, exposure, and vulnerability, yun yung nagko-compose ng total risk. So, parang kinonvert lang natin tong probability times consequences into 3 na mas broader categories, dimension, or ito. No, so, isa sa spheres na tinatawag, may nabasa ko sa ibang book. Sphere is, the first one is yung hazard. So, ito yung what can strike. Ito yung mga natural disasters. Natural disaster has its own hazards. No. And they are determined by the experts such as geologists, seismologists, and meteorologists who study earthquakes, typhoons, floods, and more. And then yung exposure, ito naman yung kailangan natin i-analyze. Yung buildings, sila ba yung ma-exposed? Yung people, infrastructure, or communities. So this can be obtained, yung mga data natin kung ilan ba yung ma-expose dun sa hazard na yun. Pwede natin kunin from the national government agencies, local government, sa mga database, sa mga satellite images, na yung mga ginagawa nyo sa research, lalong-lalo yung mga water or merong related sa disaster risk. But if yung building yung pinag-usapan ninyo is yung mga components, kung ano ba dun, anong component or part ng structure yung at risk. And the third one is yung vulnerability. So dito na yung if you're a structural engineer, kung gaano ba katibay yung infrastructure ninyo, yung structure di-design, nandito yan under sa vulnerability. So it describes how easily an exposed asset can be damaged. So for buildings and facilities, vulnerability can be estimated from your structural reports, building permit records, engineering assessment or design database, and many others. But you can also assess, if you are assessing a whole community, so yung gaano ba ka-vulnerable yung community na yan sa hazard na pwedeng mag-strike doon sa area na yun. So kailangan yun ng mga zoning, information ng mga buildings, kung gaano ba kaluma na yung mga infrastructure doon. So yun yung under vulnerability. Okay, so isa-isahin natin. The first one is hazards. And under this hazard sphere, we have this table. So, in order for us to obtain the hazard parameters or the intensity ng hazard na i-apply natin do sa pag-compute ng total risk, it's a process of understanding and extracting a data from different sources. Like for example, for earthquake, kinukuha natin sa PHIVOLCS yung geographical or meteorological information ng isang area from PAGASA. So it involves a lot of process and data gathering. So may procedure tayo sa pag-identify or pag-describe ng isang hazard na pwedeng tumama dun sa isang area or sa infrastructure. So dito, meron lang tayong nilist doon na 4. We have seismic, or we can say that this is the geophysical hazards, flooding, hydrological, strong winds, meteorological, and wildfires. So, yung 4 na to, I think very common siya sa US. And then, yung 3, common sa Pilipinas. And then, pwede pa nating ma-classify further or broken, pwede pa natin breakdown into more specific subtypes. So, pag sinabi nating seismic hazard, may iba-iba pang classification na hazards na pwedeng mangyari kapag mayroon tayong fault line. Isa na doon yung rupture, yung ground shaking, and pwede din mag-cause yung earthquake na yun, yung center ng earthquake, pwede din siyang mag-cause ng tsunamis or liquefaction. Yun yung different further types ng hazards under geophysical or seismic hazards. And under flooding, so yung flooding pwede natin ma-classify pa further kung saan ba galing or ano ba yung cause ng flooding na yan. It can be urban or yung tinatawag nating pluvial flooding. I think na-discuss naman ito sa inyo sa hydrology. So this is from intense rainfall or kapag yung soil niyo ay hindi na kayang infiltrate ng soil. So mas mataas na yung surface runoff. Yung fluvial flooding naman is yung rivers and also coastal floodings or yung failure ng mga dams. Yun yung included under hydrological hazards. And for strong winds, so yung strong winds, this is from typhoon event. So pwedeng storm winds from the typhoon or tornado. Yun yung mga example under strong winds. And wildfires, naka-classify din siya if galing sa canopy mismo yung fire or galing sa ground. Simula sa ground yung fire. Okay, so we use map para mas ma-understand natin yung hazard na yun, and specifically kapag magdi-design kayo ng structure sa isang location. So, merong mga maps na pinaprovide yung USGS, PHIVOLCS, or kung malapit ba yung location na pagtatayuan nyo ng building sa vulnerable ba siya, or may possibility magkaroon ng tsunami dun sa area na yun, or yung flooding. Makakatulong sa atin yung maps para sa intensity ng hazard or specific site and ma-design natin ng maayos yung mga loads. And para ma-produce yung mga maps na yun and prediction, we sometimes rely on methods and equipments. So, included yung mga bagong technologies na meron tayo, like INSAR for fault movement, yung mga Doppler radar for wind speed, and yung mga ito, bathymetry, or yung mga bathymetric surveys for flood modeling. And of course, yung mga gusto nating makuha ang parameters, for example, for seismic, gusto natin makuha yung peak ground acceleration or spectral acceleration, magagamit na natin yan sa pag-analyze, and for load analysis ng infrastructure, sa pagbuo ng fragility curves or vulnerability curves. Depende yan kung ano yung type ng hazards. But pwede kayo sa isang research, pwedeng multi-hazard yung mga sources ninyo ng hazard, and i-evaluate ninyo kung ano yung magiging performance ng infrastructure ninyo against these multiple hazards. Now, the exposure is the link between the hazard and its impact on the people or the building and infrastructure. Okay, so paano ba natin nadi-describe yung exposure? So we have here, for example, around 129.1 million ang affected by disasters. Pwede natin yung gusto nating ma-report sa mga, kasi yung usually yung mga exposure, pwede siya naka-percentage number lang. Pwedeng percentage or pwedeng whole number. Kung ilan yung dami ng people, say for example, na nasa isang shaking zone na merong PJ na 0.5. So, yun yung pwede yung figure or na ma-report kung ilan yung exposed dun sa isang hazard na yun. Pwede ding naka-percentage like 62% ng mga residents yung nakatira sa isang area na floodplain, 100-year floodplain. Or pwede ding gusto niyo i-assess yung vulnerability or kung ilan yung magiging exposed sa isang risk or sa isang hazard from a tsunami or sa evacuation, kung ilan ba yung, or sa hospital. So ganyan natin pwedeng i-present or i-report. Ano pa yung mga pwedeng example? Pwede ding by cost, like billion pesos worth of commercial properties yung maapektuhan against a coastal surge area. So yan yung mga way kung paano natin mapipresent yung mga ma-expose. No? Kasi yung exposure, it talks about the elements or yung mga asset na at risk, no, because of that hazard. Meron pa tayo ditong data, no, according to the World Risk Index, meron silang comparison, no. So it shows that yung USA, Philippines, and Japan, almost same sila ng flood exposure, no. 40, mas mataas pa nga sa Japan. Pero yung overall risk, yung combination na ng vulnerability and exposure and hazard, mas mataas yung sa Philippines. So yung vulnerability, yun yung pinaka third dimension or sphere ng risk, no, na ito ay talks about the quality of infrastructure that we have. No, kaya although mas mataas yung exposure rating ng Japan, but yung overall risk bumaba. So yun yung next slide natin, yung vulnerability. But dito muna tayo sa exposure. Pwede nating ma-break down into 3 levels yung mga ma-expose Pwedeng at community level, kasama dito yung mga people, critical infrastructure, the roads and the services. So, yun yung community level kung saan nakatira yung mga tao. Building level, what type of building it is, what it is used for, what is made of. Ito yung mga pwede natin i-classify dun sa mga grupo na kung sino yung mga ma-expose. And then, pwede din kasing hindi lang naman yung mga tao yung na-expose or yung mga structure or infrastructure. So, pwede din yung components, component level ng isang structure. So, nandito yun yung, included dito yung mga structural systems, mas vulnerable, mas exposed ba yung mga roof ninyo against the wind, mas exposed ba sa flooding yung mga walls or yung mga floors ninyo. So, yun, or yung mga foundation. So, yun yung at structural level. The third one is yung vulnerability. And then, we can also classify the vulnerability into 4. So, the first one, ito yung physical susceptibility. So, how easily an asset sustains physical damage for a given intensity. No, yung hazard ba na yun or makapag-cause para masira yung structure na yun. So, yun yung under physical susceptibility. Yung lakas mismo ng asset. Pwedeng tao, pwedeng infrastructure, or yung community. So, example dito is a freeboard. No, yung house na naka-elevate more than half a meter above the ground ay mas mababa yung vulnerability index. Pero yung house with almost no freeboard, mababa or mataas yung vulnerability index, no? Mas against coastal flooding. So, nakabase siya dun sa freeboard. And then, kung babalikan lang natin, babalikan natin yung World Risk Index na kino-compare yung Japan and US. Of course, mas maganda yung mga structure, no? Kung pag-usapan natin yung earthquake, mas maganda yung design ng Japan and US. Kaya mataas yung mababa yung vulnerability index nila. Kasi hindi sila gaano ka-vulnerable. Kaya yung overall risk nila ay mababa compared dun sa Philippines. Yung second category under vulnerability, ito yung coping capacity. So it is the ability to limit immediate losses and sustain essential during the disruption mismo. So it is also about how well we can function while the hazard is happening. So coping capacity includes things like redundant exits so people can evacuate safely, on-site power so hospitals, pumps, and control centers keep running when the grid fails, backflow valves, and sump pumps that keep key room dry. So all of this can reduce deaths, casualties, and direct losses even nangyayari yung hazard na yun. So in Japan and sa US, there are usually more redundancy. Like madami silang evacuation centers, large emergency shelter, but depende pa yan. Hindi naman lahat ng cities sa Japan or sa US ganun. But sa Philippines, no, although nag-improve naman yung coping capacity, meron pa ding mga communities na onti lang yung evacuation center or hindi gaano mabilis yung response during the hazard or disaster. Kaya mababa pa din kaya mataas pa din yung vulnerability ng community or ng country natin. Okay, so the third one is kung yung coping capacity ay during the event, yung adaptive capacity naman is for the next event. So combination na siya ng para mas ma-improve natin yung resiliency, yung physical susceptibility ng isang infrastructure. So dito sa adaptive capacity, we consider yung pag-enforce ng codes, yung pag-retrofit ng structure, pag-proof against fire or flooding, and included din yung risk-informed land use planning and pag-relocate. So yun yung mga under adaptive capacity. And the fourth one naman is yung interdependency in systemic vulnerability. So failures in modern communities propagate like dominoes. Kapag nasira yung, nabawa, yung transmission center, transmission tower or yung electricity, may isang mga system na nakadepende doon. So, hindi na din siya gagana. So, may mga infrastructure tayo na nawawalan na din ng effect or ng function kapag may nasira na kung saan may nasira na kung saan nakadepende siya doon sa nasira na yon. So kaya importante din no, kapag community vulnerability yung pinag-usapan or network vulnerability, so we need to consider this fourth type of vulnerability. So example lang ng pag-apply ng formula. So yung formula lang naman for risk, total risk is if meron kayong data for hazard, na intensity, and then na exposure and vulnerability, then you can obtain the total risk. So for here, meron tayong example. The subject is we need to estimate the number of people likely to be affected or injured, included yung injured or yung ma-displaced due to a building damage from specified seismic source. Yung first building natin, this is a concrete special moment frame building and it is detailed. We can assume na detalyado yung connection, yung members, so it can sway and deform without collapsing. So under siya ng, yung design niya is special moment framing. While yung second building natin is naka-steel intermediate frame lang, mababa ng onti yung ductility, so we expect na mas mataas yung damage compared dun sa first building. So, nung ginawa na natin as a structural engineer yung vulnerability curve, so yung vulnerability ng first building is 0.35. But no, the steel building has a 0.65 na vulnerability. So, this means that yung building 2 is almost twice, no, mas twice as likely to reach a severe damage than the first building. Pero sa hazard, no, or na intensity or yung site source, yung hazard source, na yung concrete building ay mas malapit dun sa fault line, so sa source. So which is 2.5 kilometers from the seismic source. So nung quantify na yung hazard, no, meron siyang 0.95 index. So sa code natin meron tayong mga factors kapag nasa type A, no, yung magnitude source. So dito sa example, since mas malapit yung concrete building, mas mataas yung hazard intensity as compared dun kung 10 kilometers from the source. So same sila na seismic source, but kino-consider na din dito yung ibang factors like yung soil type. So yan yung basta yun yung hazard intensity that we can apply for these both structures. Now, yung exposure, ang report natin is yung people in the building. So, we can say that yung mga people in the building, yun na din yung at risk na ma-injure or ma-displace. So, for the first building, magkaiba. No? Magkaiba dapat yung data, magkaiba yung information about dun sa dami ng tao na nandun sa building kapag tumama yung hazard, no? Yung earthquake. No, kapag umaga, yung number ng tao dun is 723, pero paggabi 125. So yung steel building may be residential to. Daytime 256 and pag nighttime dumami siya 350. Pero yung overall ay 367 lang. So now since kompleto na yung element ng risk, meron tayong vulnerability, hazard, and exposure, pwede nating makompute yung number of people at risk. Yun yung expected risk natin. So, multiply lang natin yun. So, for the first building, expected risk, if morning tumama yung earthquake, meron tayong 241. But, if nighttime, 442 lang. And then, for daytime population naman under the steel building, 90 lang yung maapektuhan. And for nighttime, 123. Okay, so ano yung pwede nating makuha dito from this example? Now, since ano ba yung So, yung first building, mababa yung vulnerability pero mataas yung hazard. So, para nababalance lang na. And because mataas masyado yung population ng first building, so mataas din yung daytime population na at risk dun sa damage caused by the hazard. Pero since onti na lang na yung population 42. And for steel building, 90 for daytime population, mababa pa din kasi mababa yung daytime, yung tao na nandun kapag tatama yung earthquake ng araw. And then for nighttime, mas tumaas, 123. But if we are going to consider the total occupants, no, 29.6 lang yung pinakamataas ng population na at risk kapag tumama yung earthquake under the first building. And for the steel building, meron tayong 33.5% total occupants yung at risk. So from this example, we can say that risk is multidimensional. So a building close to the fault pero low vulnerability can still be safer than a building farther away pero weak yung design. The second one, human behavior also matters. So, same building, same hazard, same fragility, but risk completely changes also. May effect yung time, no, kung kailan tumama yung hazard na yan or kung ilan yung tao during that time. Next is vulnerability reduction can outperform hazard reduction. So we cannot move buildings away from fault but we can strengthen them. Pag maganda yung design, then mababawasan din yung risk. So yun lang. Pwede nyo pa siyang ma-analyze further, no? Again, so yung risk nakadepende siya sa exposure. Pwede nyo siyang i-present kung ilan yung daming ng taong ma-expose or pwede siyang naka-percentage. And also pala, yung risk, pwede na siyang qualitated levels. Now, once na meron na kayong information about daytime population, pag iba-ibang factors yung kinoconsider nyo, not only the people na ma-expose. And then, meron kayong criteria sa research, like, pwedeng low risk, medium risk, no? So, under low risk, pwedeng 10,000 people yung affected, yung magiging damage ay 25 million. So, yun yung mga categories. So, sa research ninyo, pwede kayong merong basis para ma-quantify ninyo or ma-qualify na din kung ano ba yung risk sa isang structure na yun. Risk assessment. So, igugrupo ninyo, i-categorize ninyo yung mga different types or topologies ng structure or archetypes, kung ano siya, for hospital, ganun, school buildings, ano ba yung risk category. So, usually, yun yung mga ginagawa sa research. Pwede na siya naka-risk indices, no, composite score, kagaya dun sa World Risk Index. So, meron lang kayong mga pointing system. So, 0 to 100 or 0 to 1. Yun yung mga tinatawag nating risk indices or scenarios. No? In a 1 in 500 year earthquake, we expect that ito yung mga maapektuhan. Pwede din yung maps. Mas maganda ngayon yung mga maps na pag medyo red, yun yung mga high risk. Or, yan, marami pa tayong like curves, loss exceedance curves. So, marami tayong way kung paano ma-represent yung risk. So, isang example pa is, so for example, yung disaster naman yung i-assess natin and wala pa tayong clear direction dun sa pupuntahan ng study. So, marami pa tayong kino-consider. So, ito yung isang way kung paano tayo mag-brainstorm, kung paano tayo mag-come up sa isang objective sa research, no? So, say for example, we are considering two types of typhoon kasi interested tayo kung bakit iba yung epekto nito sa isang area. And then, bakit mas madaming namatay dahil sa typhoon na yun? Although, kahit magkalapit lang yung center or kung saan yung saan tumama yung bagyo na yun. So, first, pwede tayo mag-start dun sa location. No? Pwede kayong mag-gather ng data kung saan ba lagi yung LGU or community na naapektuhan ng bagyo na yun. And then, pwedeng barangay level, no? Which barangays were hit by both typhoons? So, how many people were affected in each event? and how many casualties. So magpo-formulate pa lang kayo ng questions or list down bago kayo mag-come up kung ano ba yung magiging direction ng studies. And then, pwede tayong mag-ask, no, why those numbers are different. So, mapupunta na, ano ba yung mga reason, factors, kung bakit nga mas madami. And also, was emergency response lower in one event? No, once na ma-identify ninyo, kung i-study nyo lang is per structure or community, no. So, yung vulnerability. Next is yung identify ninyo kung study ba ay multi-hazard. Are you going to consider both the flood, the storm surge effect sa study ninyo? So, yun yung kino-consider natin or hazard. Or kung flooding lang. No, para ma-limit natin yung objective and yung scope ng study. And then for exposure, you need to identify, kasama dito yung temporal occupancy, kung ilan ba yung tao during daytime versus nighttime, yung sighting, igugrupo ninyo kung household na yun is within 100-year floodplain or 50-year floodplain, and yung typology ng infrastructure, ng building, the built form, if shared ba or single story, so you need to categorize that. Depende yan kung yung mga bahay ba yung ina-evaluate or ina-assess ninyo or yung mga tao. And then, or lahat kung i-consider ninyo bago kayo mag-come up sa mga risk classification. Or mobility. Meron bang mga vehicles parked or stranded during the disaster. And then, under vulnerability, you need to identify if it's meron tayong pang structure level, presence of a safe upper story, wind resistance of roofing, or building fragility. So, depende yan kung yung bilis ng tao maka-evacuate ay yung assessment ninyo sa vulnerability. Vulnerability ng community, vulnerability ba ng structure. So, depende. Then, once you have all of this data, pwede naman na kung meron kayong hazard exposure, gusto nyo lang malaman yung vulnerability ng isang community versus sa ibang community, no? Or you want to evaluate yung vulnerability ng isang structure compared sa ibang structure. So, yan. Pero kung meron kayong data, no, ng hazard, exposure, and vulnerability, even though kahit na multi-hazard pa yan or different level of exposure, then pwede na rin kayo mag-come up sa risk analysis and makapagbigay kung ano yung risk level in both qualitative and quantitative way. Okay, so we can also, once na meron na tayong information, no, meron na tayong risk assessment dun sa structure, meron na siyang level, may nag-designate na tayo ng level ng risk dun sa infrastructure na yun sa community, and dito naman mapupunta yung complete risk assessment. So, in engineering, we adapt or we follow this internationally recognized standard. Ito yung ISO 31000. So, this is a guideline that continuously nag-improve because of the dynamics and the changes in the hazards. Mas naging intensify, kino-consider nyo din yung climate change. So, it involves, it's a process. So, first, you need to define ano ba yung ina-assess ninyo. Is it an asset, a location, or a time horizon? So, kasama yan sa scope, context, and criteria. And under risk assessment, kasama yung risk identification. Nandun na yung list of hazard, risk analysis, risk evaluation, risk treatment. So, yan yung typical process ng risk assessment. Okay, so aside from that, meron tayong mga fields, no, in engineering, or minsan yung mga reliability engineering na to, parang courses lang siya or subjects na ino-offer sa iba't ibang fields, hindi lang sa civil engineering. Kasi lahat naman ng mga fields na hindi lang structure yung at risk. Yung mga machines din can cause hazards, no? So, can also involve yung mga risk doon sa mga machines na yan. So, ano pa ba yung So, So, iba't ibang fields na nag-offer sila ng mga courses na yon or subjects. So, una yung reliability engineering, ino-offer din siya. It also being offered sa industrial engineering, sa systems engineering, or sa mechanical engineering. So, kasama yung reliability engineering. Pero dito sa atin, sa civil engineering, hindi required yung reliability. Nakasama lang siya sa probability, pero yung risk engineering kasama. Sa construction, kasama yung risk engineering. And meron pang isa, yung resilience engineering. Although yung resilience engineering, hindi naman talaga siya course na in-offer sa iba't ibang mga programs, pero under na din siya ng risk engineering. Pero mayroong isang school na nag-offer sila ng program na involved itong reliability or yung triple R. So, reliability, risk, and resilience engineering. So, try nyo i-search sa internet. I think Vanderbilt University yung nag-offer ng course na to. So, under reliability engineering, nakafocus ito sa probability of failure. So, computational to, and the likelihood of a system successfully performing its required function for specified time. So, common siya sa industrial engineering, sa nuclear engineering, lalong-lalo na pag-testing ng mga prototypes ng mga machines. Na sa risk engineering naman, it moves beyond probability and includes the consequence. So, it's an assessment-centric concept used to make decisions. So, meron na ditong decisions, ginagamit yung concept ng reliability, probability, para makapag-come up ng decisions and trade-offs. And the third concept, very important sa structural engineering. Now, aside from identifying the probability or uncertainty na may possibility magkaroon ng risk, dito sa resilience, we also talk about these 4 R's. Ito yung robustness, redundancy, resourcefulness, and rapidity. So, yung robustness, it is mainly focused on the ability to resist of the load. So, under siya ng physical susceptibility. Redundancy is the presence of alternative components. So, if for example, if merong landslide, or of course, pag may landslide, may masisirang mga poste ng kuryente and mawawalan ng kuryente. Pero kung meron kayong parang ibang source pa na hindi lang siya connected doon sa source na yan, so hindi mawawalan ng kuryente yung isang area. So parang mayroong backup. So yung mga backup under siya ng redundancy. Yung resourcefulness naman is the system ability to organize people, information, equipment, and money during after a disaster. Example, when the storm hits, they already know who does damage assessment, who talks to LGUs, and nandun na agad yung mga repair crews and emergency response team. And rapidity is about the speed of recovery. It is how quickly the system restores acceptable levels of service. So yung 4 R's na to, pwede siyang ma-apply sa structure level lang, but mostly ina-apply siya sa isang community under mga disaster risk reduction. So, yung robustness, nandito yung strength ng structure. So, kung gusto nyo siyang retrofit after that disaster, so under siya ng robustness. In the US, meron tayong tinatawag na FEMA. So, sila yung nag-apply nitong, nag-operate ng resilience. So, yung mission nila is to help people or yung mga infrastructure before, during, and after disasters. And, of course, kasama sila involved dun sa whole process ng resilience. Ito yung mga example or mga common manual na pwede nating ma-adapt sa pag-design. This is from FEMA. So, meron silang Coastal Construction Manual, Developing and Maintenance Emergency Plans, ay yung mga different. May mga firms dito sa Pilipinas na nakabase sila dito sa FEMA Manual. So, this one is sample lang ng Resilience Engineering Module. Kung meron tayong course na involve yung reliability, risk, and resilience, ito yung mga pwedeng topics na mapag-usapan or ma-discuss. So we have resilience engineering foundation, introduction, and in detail na development ng fragility curve. So bago kayo mag-come up dito, kailangan naaralan nyo muna ng in detail yung probability theory. Now, although i-discuss naman natin in summary na lang yung paggawa ng fragility curves. Hindi natin kasama yung vulnerability curves. Pero I think merong iba sa inyo na yung research or yung thesis ay nakafocus, no? Gagawa kayo ng fragility curves. So, important to na mapag-aralan din. So, just kahit yung basic lang, kasi may iba't ibang way kung paano mag-develop ng fragility curves. If yung commonly structure fragility curves, or yung mga building, different types of topologies. Okay, so, pag sinabi nating fragile, we can define it as easy to crack or shatter when dropped or bumped, no? So, in engineering, pwede natin mahalin tulad yung concept ng fragility sa mga assets. Yung mga assets na tinutukoy dito is yung mga buildings, bridges, power lines, industrial plants, or mga ports and hospital. So, this asset has some level of demand, so it can pwede niyang i-tolerate. And beyond that level, or sa structure natin yung mga limit states, na it can break in a particular way. So, fragility, we can define this as the susceptibility or the physical susceptibility to damage. Okay, so we can represent, no, yung kung gaano ka-weak yung structure natin using this concept of probability. And then yung concept ng probability na yun ay na-apply natin para mag-come up tayo sa isang function. So this fragility function is based from the commutative distributive function or probability distributive function. No, kapag medyo naalala nyo pa yung mga concept na yun from probability theory. Although yung iba sa inyo ay ginagamit to in your research. So, ibig sabihin nun, alam nyo na din yung concept ng probabilities, kung paano tayo nag-come up sa mga functions. So, if you have function, di ba, sa calculus, and pwede kayong makagawa ng curve. No? So, aside from these probability functions, of course, pwede tayong makapag-plot ng curves. So, we can say that this fragility function, it can tell us how likely that a bad outcome is given a certain level of excitation. So, yung mga level of excitation natin is yung mga measures na nakuha natin from hazard identification. So, kapag earthquake yung hazard ninyo, pwedeng PGA, spectral acceleration, or yung mga magnitude ng earthquake or intensity, yan yung mga pwedeng excitation. So, if the shaking level is X, yun yung shaking level. So, what is the probability that this thing fails or enters a damaged state? Ano ba yung mga shaking level? Yeah, so yung shaking level na yun is naka-based dun sa intensity measure. So, lahat yun, yung mga event na yun, can be under this set, kung alam nyo pa. No? So there's an event, possibility na yung event na yun ay mangyari. So, there's a probability. So, we need to identify, no, kung ano yung magiging probability na mag-fail yung asset natin. Pero may mga level ng pagka-damage lang. So, we can say, dito in general muna, DS1, DS2, damage state 1, damage state 2. Pero yung mga common kasi is yung slight damage, moderate damage. Yun yung mga common na categories ng damage state. So, different structures, iba-iba din yung damage state. Pwedeng global or yung local, naka per component. Okay, so yung yung fragility function natin can be defined into two. Now, the first definition is this based on conditional probability of failure. So, the first definition, it is a mathematical function that expresses the probability that some undesirable event occurs as a function of some measure of environmental excitation. So, this is the first definition. And if we use this, it follows the exact norm. We can determine the exact probability given the excitation. So this one, we can say that the probability that the asset fails given that the intensity measure x has the value of x is equal to the value of the fragility function evaluated at x. Now, yung mga pwede say for example, kapag earthquake yan, yung mga x natin is yung mga 0.3, yung intensity measure, say for example 0.3g, 0.5g, and 0.8g. So the function gives us the probability between 0 and 1. Kung ano yung maging probability at different values of x. Ano yung maging probability failure? Now, if yung spectral acceleration is equal to 0.3g. So we can use the curve para ma-plot natin kung ano yung exact probability. But when we use this function, this actually derived from the S-curve. We still need to use the need to get the area para sa probability. So sa curve pa lang yan. And also yung fragility function natin according to Porter, yung reference natin. So it follows a log normal. So you can see this one. So the probability of failure given that the intensity measure, ganyan natin siya basahin, is equal to x is equal to the standard. No? Yung standardized value ng difference ng natural logarithmic ng x minus ln. Parang kulang to. ln x minus theta. So, baguhin nyo na lang. ln x minus theta over beta. So, yung theta is the median intensity that causes the limit state. Ito yung mga kailangan makuha ninyo from testing or sa research. Ano ba yung median intensity that causes the limit states? Now, from different trials. Beta is the log normal dispersion or the uncertainty. And this one is the standard normal CDF. Para makuha natin yung probability value. The second one naman is nakabase na siya sa cumulative distributive function. Pwede natin basahin yun. No? Under this, a fragility function represents the cumulative distributive function of the capacity of an asset to resist an undesirable limit states. So we can say that yung capacity na yun, it represents the IM level at which it just collapses. So we can read this as now F, the fragility of a certain intensity is equal to the probability ng capacity will be less than dun sa less than or equal to x. And yung isa is yung itong may failure, pwede natin siyang basahin as the probability of failure given that the intensity measure equals x is the same as the probability that the capacity is less than or equal to x and will be equal to f, the fragility, no, f sub x. So yan yung mga naming natin sa probability. Dito naka-follow yung fragility function. So, a simple example, supposed to be meron na kayong data from testing it gives you the median value of 0.8g, yun yung theta, and then yung beta ninyo is 0.4. So, the median, the fragility function is the probability of collapse, no, plug in lang. Ito, sulatin nyo lang yung, sinulat nyo lang, pinesent lang natin ulit yung formula or yung representation ng fragility function. So, for x is 0.8g, dun tayo interested. So, if 0.8g yung x natin, yun yung interested tayo na probability. So, ano ba yung magiging probability kapag yung x is 0.8g? Ano yung probability of damage? No, so, we can have this, plug in nyo na lang yung 0.8 and then the median value is 0.8 din and over 0.4. So, yung value nung fraction na yun or yung magiging yung ratio ng ln 0.8 over 0.4 ay 0, and then kapag tiningnan natin, ito yung magiging z value ninyo. So tingin kayo ulit dun sa normal distribution curve. So yung probability if 0 yung z is equal to 0.5. So there's a 50% probability na magko-collapse, no, when the shaking is equal to 0.8g or equal dun sa median capacity. Okay, so the general log normal fragility form, we can read this as the fragility of damage. The fragility function for a damaged state D evaluated as the X output is equal to the probability that the damage D is greater than or equal to D given that the intensity measure X, capital X, is equal to X. And then the probability will be equal to this phi, and then the ratio of the natural logarithmic of x over the median or median capacity over beta d. Okay, so yung mga units natin for theta, dapat same siya dun sa x. Yung theta is intensity din, and beta is the logarithmic standard deviation. Now, yung term na may ito, yung P, the probability of D greater than or equal to D, given that X, capital X is equal to X, ito ay isang example ng conditional probability. So, kaya nag-come up dito is nakabase siya dun sa conditional probability. I hope naalala nyo pa yung concept ng conditional probability. So, this one, P, the probability of A given B, this statement is true given that the statement B is true. So here, yung A is yung damage state exceeds D or yung damage state na interested tayo, and B is the excitation, X is equal to X. Now, yung mga damage state, ito yung tinutukoy natin, no? If yung D ninyo is 0, then damage, ano yung probability na maging undamaged or yung component ninyo will be on the undamaged state. If D is equal to 1, damage state 1. If D is equal to 2, yan yung damage state 2. Yung small d naman, ito yung particular damage state index. Wala tayong uncertainty. So, example dito is D is equal to 1 might corresponding to minor cracking. D is 2 is to major cracking. Mamaya meron tayong example. So, isa-isayin lang natin. And D is the number of possible damage state. Yung X is ito yung excitation intensity. If yung hazard ninyo is earthquake, so pwedeng naka-spectral acceleration, pwede yung magnitude. If wind naman, ano ba yung, pwede din naka-story drift ratio, pwede natin siyang i-represent yung intensity measure. Pag yung mga wind naman is yung wind speed, pwede nyo gawin as intensity measure. Pero yung ito, according to FEMA, pwede natin siyang tawagin demand parameter, yung intensity measure, or according to PEER, we can use the engineering demand parameter. So as an example, we have here example 2. Imagine a non-structural wall component with two damage states. So the first damage state is minor cracking. D is equal to heavy cracking. So sa research niyo, pwedeng madaming damage state. And yung X or intensity measure is the peak story drift ratio. So ito yung ginamit niya. Pero pwede kayong gumamit ng naka-base sa base shear, pwedeng yung spectral acceleration. And then we assume from different samples. So madami kayong ginawang testing, madami kayong simulation or condition. So yung nakuha ninyo na yung average na drift is equal to 0.005 and yung standard deviation nun is 0.6. So the fragility for D1, actually pwede kayong mag-formulate ng you follow this and then kahit hindi nyo nasundin yung procedure ng iba't ibang author because this is the standard way of developing a fragility curve. So the fragility for D1, and then we just plug into the formula. Now this is just the ratio. Now once you know kung ano yung interested kayo na X value or intensity measure, peak story drift ratio over dun sa data that we have, yung theta 1 and over 0.6. Now, once na makuha niyo yun, say for example, yung story drift ratio na interested tayo is 0.01. If X, the intensity measure or the peak story drift ratio is equal to 1% story drift. So, we just plug in this 0.01, gawin nyo din siyang in decimal na lang. So, the z-score is 1.155. Okay, so, yung z-score pa lang yan, yung nakuha natin. So, kailangan pa natin kunin yung probability. So, the probability is the area under the curve. So, we need to use the normal distribution curve, and kailangan natin kunin yung may probability na dapat yung area to the left. So, yan, yung probability na yan yung probability. Yung area na yon, yung shaded area na yon na makukuha natin, yun na yung probability na magkakaroon ng at least minor cracking. So, pwede siyang minor cracking or major cracking. So, kasi sa diba, sa z-score or sa mga probability curve, merong tatlo yan. So, merong in between, dapat dalawa yung value ng z ninyo, pwede ding value to the right. So, ang titingnan ninyo is yung mga value to the left. So, yung Z at 0. Yung probability at story drift ratio is 1%, which is equivalent to a 1.155 z-score. The probability is 0.87. So, at 1% drift, there's about 87 probability that the wall will experience at least D1 or worse. So, dalawa lang naman yan. D is equal to 1 and D is equal to 2. So, ngayon, ano yung probability na hindi siya magkakaroon ng damage? Or what is the reliability? Kasi yung opposite ng probability of failure is reliability. So, reliability is equal to 1 minus probability of F. So, yan yung concept ng reliability. Now, for this problem, kayo na bahala mag-solve kung ano yung probability ng no failure. So, this is just 100 minus 87. So ngayon, for example, 3, mas madami na yung damage states. So again, yung intensity measure natin ay story drift ratio pa din, pero nadagdagan yung damage states, naging 3 na siya. And yung given data ay 3 na din. So for DS1, para masabi natin na yung damage state 1 lang siya, under damage state 1, dapat yung theta 1 from testing, so, yung average or yung median yung ginagamit, 0.005. Yung beta is 0.6. So, same lang sila ng standard deviation, pero tumataas din yung drift ratio. Kapag mas mataas na yung damage state or near collapse, mas mataas din yung story drift. So, magkakaroon siya ng collapse, magko-collapse na yung structure na yan kapag ganito yung value ng story drift. Okay, so gagamitin natin lahat ng information na yun. So, we need to solve for the probability of at least, so lahat ng mga sinasolve natin is using this formulation or is naka-at least siya. So, hindi siya yung exact na probability na magkakaroon ng damage at 1%. So, naka-at least siya. So, we just need to solve for this probability na at 1% drift. So, same lang, at 1% drift, at least magkaroon siya ng first damage state So may nakuha tayong 0.874. So about 87% of at least slight damage. Next for DS2. So for DS2, ang nabago lang naman is yung theta 2. So 0.5 yung 0 yung C-score, and kapag tiningnan natin yung probability sa normal distribution table, so 0.5 yung probability, so about 50% chance of moderate or worse. So mas bumababa, kung mapapansin niyo, bumababa din yung probability kapag tumataas yung damage state. So for third damage state, 0.126 na lang yung probability, or about 30% chance of exceeding damage, chance of extensive damage or worse. And then to summarize, for summary, the F1X, yung probability that at least slight damage or more, 0.874, so bumabawas yan, 0.5, 1, 2, 6, and then if pwede nating magamit yung mga values na to. Now, once na kompleto na natin yung mga values na yan, pwede din nating ma-convert na makuha. We can turn this at least into exactly probability. So kung titingnan natin yung fragility curve, ito yung value ng probability in between. So mag-start kayo sa 100, and then minus ninyo dun sa probability na nakuha ninyo. So yung PD greater than 1 or greater than damage state 1 is 0.874. So yung probability na merong no damage is yung difference nun. So we can say that the probability of no damage is exactly 0.126 or 13% yung no damage. And then probability na exactly slight damage only is just the difference between F1X and then F2X. So pag nakuha nyo na yung difference na yun, yan na yung exact probability. So gamit yung relationship, yung pinakauna nating formulation for fragility function, ang makukuha natin dun is at least. And then para makuha ninyo yung exact, so subtract nyo lang. And then for probability na exactly magko-collapse yung structure, yung wall na yun, is just equal to yung P D exactly 3 is just equal to fragility ng F3X. Paano ba ito masahin? Basta gawin nyo lang F3X 0.126. Yun na yun yung exact, no? So yung for damage 3, same na siya dun sa probability D is greater than 3. So 0.126 kasi wala na tayong mas mataas na damage state para dun. So 13% extensive. Na kung itatapat-tapat nyo class na sa isang intensity measure, dapat yung sum ng mga exact probability na yun ay laging mag-equal to 1. So yun. So ato, sample lang to ng mga curve. Ganito yung maging itsura ng curve na. So at 0.5, mas mataas yung no damage kasi mababa lang naman yung excitation. And then meron din siyang slight damage, moderate, intensive. No, and then makikita ninyo kung paano yung itsura niya. So pwedeng multiple sa isang chart, pwedeng nandun nakalagay yung mga curves, fragility curve for different damage state, or pwede din nyo siyang i-present na isa-isa lang. Kapag slight damage lang, pwedeng isang graph lang sa isang chart na. So for slight damage lang. Pero ganito yung concept ng fragility, ang paggawa ng fragility curve. So, I hope may natutunan kayo dito.